Hello viewers, how are you? I hope that all are well and taking precautions while moving outside and following the COVID-19 appropriate behavior. And as you know that I am Dr. Jetling Ellosa, running a YouTube channel called Law Speeches. And from time to time I am posting my lectures and speeches on different facets of law as well as the burning world topics. And today also I am discussing another important aspect which coming across, that is the preventive detention and the apex court and also the terrorism. So before proceeding to my speech, I would like to request all of you to subscribe to my channel, watch my videos. If you feel that those videos are informative and knowledgeable, like it, comments, and also share among your communities. And today we are discussing an important and burning topic, not only from the constitutional perspectives but also from the general perspectives also. That is the preventive detention. You know, the Constitution of India is a sacred document, and the sacred document has given us the constitutional rights and also the fundamental rights. So fundamental rights are those rights which are enshrined in the part 3rd of the Constitution, from Article 12 to Article 35. These are the fundamental, and no point of time state can deny, can take away these rights unless until there is a great warranty is required. Among the fundamental rights, we have freedoms also been enumerated. Under Article 19, freedom of speech and freedoms are there. In addition to that, we have the Article 20, 21 and 22. So these are the articles also talks about the freedoms. So freedom of life and personal liberties, that should be guaranteed by the state under all the circumstances. So Article 21 specifically provides, though it is very small article in the entire constitutional edifice is concerned, that no person shall be deprived of the life or personal liberty except according to the procedure established by law. But already I delivered my in-depth lecture regarding this Article 21 and the Article 22, where the first part speaks about the protection of against arbitrary arrest, and the second part which talks about the preventive detention. So Article 21 first part, where also I posted one lecture regarding the arbitrary arrest, and today we are devoting the entire lecture to the preventive detention and terrorism, and also the important landmark judgments delivered by the Supreme Court and various high courts in our country. So preventive detention means it is a, though offense is not committed, but a person is arrested. Generally, we had the notion that if a person commits any offense, he is be arrested for his offense, for his act. But here in preventive detention, no offense is committed and the person is arrested. So, in the Constitution, where Article 22, nowhere it is prescribed the definition of the preventive detention. But if we apply the general meaning of the preventive detention, it runs as follows. So, preventive detention is nothing but imprisonment of a person on with the aim to preventing him from committing offense. So, arresting a person with main aim to prevent or deter the person not to commit the offense, that be called as a preventive detention. And also a preventive detention can be made of for the purpose of maintaining public order and also security of the state is. On these grounds, a person can be detained before committing of an offense. You know, if you go to substantial law in criminal justice system is concerned, we have the Criminal Procedure Code of 1973 is there. Under that code, section 151 of the CRPC speaks about the how and what circumstances a person can be prevented from or can be arrested, where it has been stated that action can be on the grounds of suspicion that some wrong action may be done by person concerned. So it will be called as a preventive detention. So the state is suspecting that a person may commit an offense. To prevent it, because an offense is nothing but it is a wrong upon the society, wrong upon the state. It is a responsibility of the state to prevent recurrence or occurrence of such offense. So that is the reason we have the preventive detention. And as you know that there are two kinds of detentions are there. One is a punitive detention. If a persons may commit an offense, he be arrested, that will be called as a punitive detention. Whereas a preventive detention is a detention where offense is not committed, but there is a suspension is there that he will going to commit an offense, then he will be detained. That will be called as a preventive detention. Then we have to know whether in a democratic polities around the world such laws are available where preventive detention is made. If you observe the American Constitution or American legal regime is concerned, there no such law is prescribed which permits the United States administration to resort to preventive detention. if you see the British legal system, in Britain also there was no such law is there, but when the First World War and Second World War, the British governments at that relevant point of time, they invoked the preventive detention under Defense of Rome Act. So, by this act, the persons were detained. Thereafter, only exceptionally during time of war only, British government will resort to preventive detention. And other times, it cannot. But in India, we have a different setup, because India is a multicultural, multiracial, multi-systematic systems are prevailing. So that is the reason. The makers of the Constitution of India, they debated and deliberated whether to include the preventive detention or not, whether we should go for American system or British system. But majority, they concluded that we should have the preventive detention laws. That is the reason. The fundamental rights itself speaks about the preventive detention laws. So in a case called the famous case, which was reported in 1950s, that is the A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras, All India Reporter, 1950, Supreme Court, page number 27. Very first year existence of the Constitution and the Supreme Court of India. The question came whether preventive detention laws should be there, or they are within the purview of the constitutional edifice of fundamental rights or not. And at that time, the legal luminaries of the day, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of India, Patanjali Sastri, he strongly supported, stating that preventive detention laws should be there, because the preventive detention laws have been incorporated into our Constitution to strengthen the democratic polity, because the decisive forces may damage the fabric of the democracy. So that should not be there. So that is the reason the preventive detention law is to be made as received the apex court to mandate. And from there onwards, we traveled a long journey. Then we see the various legislations which prescribe the preventive detention in our country. First, in 1950 itself, the first government, now Jawaharlal Nehru government, the first parliament has approved the first bill upon the preventive detention, that be popularly called as a Preventive Detention Act of 1950. So the act is made for the purpose of to protect the sovereignty, integrity of India, defense of India, and the Preventive Detention Act of 1950 The preamble itself says that security of India should be maintained. Then we have to maintain the public order and the defense. So that is the reason we should have enacting the Preventive Detention Act of 1950s. Then the same Act of 1950 under Section 3 empowered the central and the state governments to make an order for the purpose of the preventive detentions. Though the Preventive Detention Act is directly infringes our fundamental right, no doubt about it. But a nation has been formed, and the decisive forces are there, already I told you. So the nation should be continue. So regarding this act is enacted. Then, though the act is meant for the only short term, but it was there up to 31st of December 1969. Then again, the Indira Gandhi regime of 1970s had enacted another act called Maintenance of Internal Security Act, popularly called of MISA of 1971. So the act is on par with the Preventive Detention Act of 1950s. But because of this act, when the national emergency was imposed in 1975, thousands of people were arrested. So it received a political abuse. Political human rights have been grossly abused by then government headed by the Srimati Indira Gandhi. And this act had gone by the advent of the Janata Party government in 1977 under the stewardship of Morarji Desai. But as you know that the Morarji Desai government has, a coalition government has not survived for a long time. Then he was replaced by A. Charan Singh, another leader from Janata Party. He was supported by the Congress Party led by the Srimati Indira Gandhi. So when he formed the government, again he brought one more draconian law, that is in name of Prevention of Black Marketing and the Maintenance Supplies of Essential Commodities Act. So this act is looks to be a draconian. Maybe the act speaks about the essential commodities, but under this act, political opponents got arrested. But one goodness of the act was that it was provided furnishing of the grounds of arrest to detain you within 5 days. And this act also given a chance to detain you to have a representation. That means he can engage a legal counsel on his behalf. So that is the goodness of this act. And in addition to that, this act also provided there should be a advisory board, and a detention should be there for more than 7 weeks. The advisory board's order should be taken off. So without order of the advisory board, a person cannot be detained under this act for more than 7 weeks. So another goodness of this act is that maximum detention period is not more than 6 months. If it is beyond 6 months, the detainee has every right to avail constitutional and fundamental right under Article 32 to going to the Supreme Court of India, under Article 226, a constitutional right approaching the High Courts, challenging his detention. So again, in 1980s, political upheavals happened in India and elections were conducted. Again, the Indira Gandhi government came to power in 1980s. And soon after coming to power of the assumption of the power by the Indira Gandhi government, it is enacted. First, it has enacted an ordinance called National Security Act, where the act is provided a preventive detention can be made of in case of the communal rights. If a persons are responsible for the commission of the communal rights, they can be arrested under the preventive detention. And not only that, but also a caste rights. If the government feels that there may be outbreak of communal rights or caste rights, this act can be, under this act, the person can be detained. And this act also provided that detention for 12 months, 1 year. Earlier, only for 6 months, but it has extended to 12 months. Then, if it is beyond the 12 months, the detainee has a right to challenge his detention by approaching the Supreme Court or the High Courts under Article 32 or Article 226 of the Constitution of India. So in 1980s, we have seen outburst of secessionism in Punjab. And dissident forces have been so active in the northeastern states and also in Jammu and Kashmir. To face those challenges, in 1984, this act was amended by way of an ordinance, and there the grounds of arrest have been separated. Again, this, because of separation of the grounds of arrest, it was envisaged in that act, that in our amendment, that extension can be there beyond the 12 months to 2 years. So, this 12 months has gone. Now there is a 2 years. A person can be detained under National Security Act of 1980. So in a Supreme Court, in a famous case called A.K. Roy versus Union of India, reported in All India Reporter, 1982, SC, page number 710. It is also popularly now called as a NASA NSA case. So in this case, the Supreme Court upheld the constitutional validity of this act by a full bench consisting of 5 judges. Full constitutional bench was constituted, and 4-1 this act was declared as a having within the constitution. And in this case, the Supreme Court has given some landmark judgments, guidelines in implementing this NSA Act. And thereafter, in 1987, again there is a lot of changes have been made to the political spectrum in India. Indira Gandhi was assassinated in 1984 by his own bodyguards. And again, we have seen the Operation Blue Star, and northeastern states also, Ulfa and other decisive forces have been gaining ground, and Jammu and Kashmir became a hotbed for terrorism. To tackle all those problems, in 1987, then government of Rajiv Gandhi enacted the Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Prevention Act of 1987, popularly called as a TADA. Under this act, it is also be called a draconian legislation made by the Indian Parliament. And wide powers were given to the state governments to arrest in a preventive way. So there was lot of arrests were reported under TADA. One report says that 67,000 people were arrested under TADA. If you are differing the political opinion, you be branded as a terrorist. And if you see the conviction rate under TADA, it is very, very minimal, only 725 criminals were convicted under TADA. So here we have seen there is a sheer misuse of invoking the TADA. And the Supreme Court in Kartar Singh versus State of Punjab, 1994, volume 3, SCC, page number 569, has openly stated that the preventive detention laws are only meant to deny the bail to the accused persons, that cannot be permitted. As a criminal jurisprudence speaks that getting of bail is a legal right, a constitutional right. How you can take away those rights? And again, 500 under trials who were facing the charges under the TADA also filed their cases and challenged this TADA Act, and even the famous Hindi actor Sunil Dutt was arrested under the TADA. Then there is it received again a kind of attention from the media, public spirited persons, non-governmental organizations, because a prominent figure has been arrested. Then it became a issue, national issue. Ultimately, the TADA was repealed by the government or the parliament. So the question before us, who is a terrorist? Because we have the TADA, a separate act is provided. Who is a terrorist? For that, there is a lot of different opinions are there. From the legislative point of view, as well as from the judicial point of view also. There is no universal definition is there, because we cannot say this is a terrorist activity or this cannot be terrorist activity. Generally, we know that if a person overawes the government, public order or security, then he is liable for, he will be declared or branded as a terrorist. So, different perspectives are there in the universal level. If you go to international level also, there is no meaning is there. Though the United Nations General Assembly since 50 years is deliberating that what should be called as a terrorism. Now we have the bio war. That also been declared as a terrorist act. We have seen ISIS, we have seen in Somalia, we have seen in Ethiopia, in Syria, Afghanistan, Taliban's. So it all depends. Terrorism, so that is the reason Union General Assembly, after 50 years of its discussions, has concluded its meaning, the accurate definition of the terrorism. Again, so in the judicial level also in India, it was discussed. Like in a case called Yaqub Abdul Razak Menon in 2013. It has given a restrictive meaning to terrorism. All cannot be called general activities, criminal activities cannot be called as a terrorist activities. And in Hitendra Vishnu Thakur case is reported in 1994, the Supreme Court has tried to define the what terrorism and provided the various inputs to the terrorism. What can be called as a terrorism, what cannot be called as a terrorist act. Then in a Rajiv Gandhi assassination case, in Nalini versus and others, the judgment was delivered in 1999. The Nalini was not guilty under the TADA. She was acquitted from the charges from the TADA. Basing upon that, she does not want to overhaul the government. So that is the reason. If you overhaul the government, then only you be declared as a terrorist. And in addition to this discussion, we have in 1967 we have enacted Unlawful Activities Prevention Act of 1967. So this act, again, many times innocent peoples were arrested, basing upon the political differences, basing upon the other things. So recent past, 7,840 persons were arrested under this act, and only we see the conviction rate is concerned only minimum, that is a 155. So it is now high time to think, because we boast our constitution is a highest regarded constitution in the world. We have the democratic polity. Everywhere democracy is visible. That has also been accepted by the courts and the world countries. They consider India is a biggest democratic country in the world. Whether we should have these preventive detentions? Maybe we should have one. There are number of reasons are there, because the makers of the Constitution of India, the Constituent Assembly also made a serious debate and discussions, because ours is a multilateral society. Many languages, thousands of castes, creed, different sects are there. And now, because of the modern innovations in the technology, resulting into commission of the crime by individual, by sitting one place, and the commission of offense is happening in the other place. So there should be a balance, should be there. So it is our duty to protect the national interest, law and order, public order, societal order. So we can say that we should have this kind of laws. So this is my lecture. If you feel that my lecture is informative and knowledgeable, share among your communities. Moreover, our constitution is a supreme document. We are golden principles have been there in our constitution. So preventive detention laws, which are received the mandate of the Constitution of India. So that is the reason to protect our society, protect ourselves, protect our nation. We should have the preventive detention laws. With this, I am concluding my lecture. Thank you, one and all.